I think love brings up a lot of fear. Um, and I think that there's a way to say, that's okay, but I'm going to keep walking toward this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob the Drag Queen.
And it's me, Miss Peppermint. And welcome to Town Hall, a Black queer podcast, the podcast where we journey through a theme by sharing stories, music, poetry, and art of varying depth and hilarity. Today's episode for you is all about love.
You ever been in love? That's from Legally Blonde. Do you remember that scene from Miseducation of Lauryn Hill where the teacher goes, "How many of y'all know what love is?"
Yeah. Oh, yes. And those kids went in, honey. I remember that one girl. She's like, sometimes they don't know what love is. They never been in love. They never know what it like to be feeling love. They blah blah blah. And she just killed it. And it was like
I was like, are these? She was like, one of the girls was like, sometimes when your boy tries to like embarrass you, but love would never do that. And I was
love
like,
would never do that.
And they sound like New Yorkers. I was like, what are these New Yorkers going through? What is the life of an
divorce,
8th grade New Yorker?
Clearly.
I want to find those kids and be like, what were y'all going through in 8th grade?
You know what? It does. It speaks to the truth because love, for a lot of people, does bring up a lot of fear. There's a lot of people who are afraid to say that they love their partner. Even if they have those feelings, they wait to say the word because it just brings so much. It just means so much. And I remember I was watching an episode of The Last of Us on HBO, episode 3. Spoiler alert, there's a gay couple. They introduce these 2 gay characters. And one of the characters...
There's always got to be a gay in every show. They're pushing it in our faces.
And one of the characters, it's dystopian and it's all about being like a survivalist and sort of being alone. And there's like a zombie apocalypse. It's after the zombie apocalypse. So there's not a lot of people around and people are like fighting for survival. And so one of those guys who's fighting for survival lives alone and then meets this other guy and they obviously get together. That's the spoiler. But they're years later, because it takes place over years, they're together. And later on in their relationship, they're out at the garden and they're having a simple, like they plant some strawberries and they have this simple like moment where they're like eating strawberries, which is like something I guess they don't get to do usually. And one of them breaks into tears and says, you know what, until I met you, I was not afraid of anything. And so I think that just goes to show that there's some people like suddenly what that meant to me is he's afraid of losing the love that he had. So love does bring up fear for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think love brings up a lot of emotions for a lot of people. Love is a quadruple, pentuple, dodecaduple edged sword. It's a very big sword.
I love those words you just made up.
No, a dodecahedron is a real thing.
Okay.
I'll have you know. I don't know, this in geometry as a kid. But yeah, I think that it's really interesting. Love, but also sometimes love be making people act crazy, baby. Sometimes people in love be acting wild. Love be making people codependent. Kelly Clarkson had a song that she said, "I never lived before your love. I never felt before your touch. I was like, it's giving codependent a little bit.
Listen,
the best love songs are codependent.
I was just thinking about how, because I'd heard this, but I don't really know. I never really did any research on it. How apparently, allegedly, I heard that in the ancient times, in ancient Greece, they would have paired 2 soldiers up who were lovers, like get 2 male soldiers as lovers, because that would make them fight more ferociously for their lover. And they would pair them up as like combat partners to go out into the battlefield and they would defend each other and all of that.
What if you paired up, you're like, this nigga ain't even sexy. I don't even like him. He ain't even cute.
I'll kill him myself.
This nigga be snoring. He ain't cute. I ain't fighting for him. In fact, Sparta, he over here. Sparta.
Today's episode is all about love.
Well, my name is Seth Michael White. I just moved to LA back in July. I just started to date this month. So I had to really moving to a new place is always it's always difficult. So I had to learn to date myself here. And so what that looked like me taking myself on self dates. You know, it was like I would do with myself what I wanted to do with what I would love to do with somebody else. Like I took myself to the Getty Villa. I took myself to movie screenings and movie premieres. Like if I'm with somebody like in the future, you know, it's like I want to be with them because I want to be with them, not because I need to be with them, because I need to see all these cool experiences and do all these cool things with them because I did it for myself already. But yeah, dating has been interesting here. I actually went on my first, I guess, real date with the guy that I was talking to on Hinged. And I kind of told him that I was coming on this podcast. Yeah, we met on Hinged and we were talking for like a few weeks, and then like I was just like, what is the point of these dating apps? If like, isn't the point to like meet up and like actually see where things go in like in real life, like IRL? Like I was just like, let's go do something. Like let's go to a movie. And I know that's kind of weird to like make your first date like a movie theater where like you can't really get to know them and like you're like in a dark space for like 2 hours or whatever it is. We went to go see The Whale, which is like super depressing for a first date. And so we had been talking consistently prior to meeting up on like texting and stuff like that for about 2 weeks. So I felt really comfortable meeting up with him. Like I was actually like, oh, I really want to like see if this person is as good as they seem like via the interweb or whatever. And right from the get-go, like I pull up to the movie theater and like I'm walking up to the theater and he's standing there waiting, and like instantly it was like he like pulled me in for like this warm embrace, and it was like we had like known each other. Like it just felt supernatural. But then obviously like it's like, okay, like that was nice, and so I want to see them again. And so now we're like on like the follow-up phase. Like we're supposed to hang out this week. I don't know. I've been in relationships in the past where like they were either at relationships of convenience or a relationship. Like it was like I needed, you know, I wanted somebody to save me. I wanted somebody to take care of me. I wanted somebody to give me the things that I never got when I was a kid. It was about 2 years ago. I met this guy in this fellowship, that community that I'm a part of. And it was like the first time that like I had been wooed. Basically one night he was just like, go outside your apartment door right now. And I was like, what the hell? He was like, be outside your apartment at 7 p.m. And so I walk outside my apartment at 6:59. I walk out onto the curb and like this fucking like, can I curse on this show? Okay. My like basically this car like, you know, pulls up in front of my apartment, and he's like texting me, he's like, get in the car. And I get in the car, and like it's this driver who like then takes me from like my apartment, which at the time was in Bed-Stuy, to downtown, like by BAM, by Brooklyn Academy of Music. And so I go down to this restaurant, and it's this cute little Italian like restaurant with like candlelight, and we have this beautiful dinner, and he's like, you know, we're like, it's so romantic, and it's like something that I've never experienced. Like I never knew that was the kind of courting that I deserved, you know. Like then we went to a movie, and we like went back to his place, and it was just like that. Our whole entire dating experience for the 6 months that we dated, it was only like very short, right? It was like 6 months that we dated. It was all of that. It was like trips outside the city to upstate New York, where we would go to a cabin and then like go on a lake, and like I had never dated someone before, and like I was so curious. I was like, so what are we doing? He's like, dating is like the getting to know phase. We're getting to know each other. And I'm like, this like is like a lot, you know? I'm not used to dating, like, you know, like actually going on dates out in public. I'm used to like the whole Netflix and chill, you know, smoke a little weeds, you know, chill in the cut, like very private, very like, you know, and then the next morning, like we walk out the door, we walk our separate ways, and then we might do it again in a couple of days or so. Like that to me was what dating was. I didn't know that I could be out in the world with this person that I'm romantically attracted to, where we can hold hands and we'll cross the Brooklyn Bridge and like sit on the Brooklyn Bridge in the rain, and like have somebody sit across from me and tell me like, you know, I tell them all my deepest, darkest secret things that I think are going to like scare them away. And they're like, oh my God, that makes me want you even more. Like I had no idea that existed until this person that I was dating. What ended up happening, if I'm being honest, was that like they wanted me to commit to them in a way that I wasn't like, I wasn't sure at the time that I could. Like, I was like, I don't know if this is like, I don't know. Like, I know this is something that I've never experienced, but I don't know if this is something that I can handle or at this point in my life. And they were like, well, I need to know. I need to know that if we're doing this, we're doing this. And I can't wait around for you to come to decide. And so we went our separate ways. And, you know, for months afterwards, like we would still stay in contact and like, we like try to like, you know, get closure, as people say, like, and it's like, what is closure? You know, like, you know, so we would just text each other randomly or like, you know, sometimes FaceTime or whatever. And this went on, it was like the longest breakup because it was like 2 years of just like cute text messages here and there, pictures. Like I would walk down the street and see his like last name on like a street corner or on a sign or something. And I would take a picture of it and send it to him. Or it was like we would send each other songs that came out in the last 2 years that reminded us of each other. Or like I was always constantly trying to like remind him that he was on my mind. And I thought by him reciprocating that or being open to that, that there was hope that maybe we can still rekindle this thing. And like, you know, I haven't met anybody since him that made me feel that way. And so, you know, and one day he just basically was just like, hey, like, if every time we text, it's like you have this hope that like we're going to get back together, then I don't think we can do this anymore. Like we need to like just cut it dry. And I'm like, you're the one that's like texting me and like you're the one that's asking me like how my day is going. Like, what is your point in doing that if you don't have the desire to be with me again? Like, what are we doing? And so it was actually recently that I like finally like, you know, back in December, actually, I finally was just like, okay, it's never like, he conveniently told me that he was in a new relationship and that he was like, hey, so I'm just so you know, like, I know we've been texting for a little while. And we just started texting again, like back when I moved to LA. Cause I was like, oh, I'm 30,000 miles away. Like he's back in New York. I'm here. We can be friends again. We can like start to like see where, you know, we can meet in the middle at. We started texting and, you know, sending each other pictures and just catching each other up on our lives. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm in LA now. I'm like popping now. So now do you want me? Like not without, and in so much words, I said those things like, hey, like, so I'm in New York now. Like I've done some healing. Like, is it possible? Like, I know I'm so far away and you're so far away, but maybe we can do this again. Like, and by the end of it, by December, I just realized that like, okay, like this is not my person, you know, and I would love them to be, but maybe that relationship served its purpose, which was to just show me what was possible, show me what I did deserve out in life. And like, I didn't deserve boyfriends in the past who, you know, who I only slept with once out of the whole year we were together. It was either like a group situation or they were always trying to bring somebody else into the picture. Or it was always like this like thing that like, I was like, are you my boyfriend or are we just like friends who had sex one time? Like, and so, yeah, it's like, I feel like that breakup definitely, it was the longest breakup. It was like, I finally feel like I'm over that person. I can honestly say that like, and that's why I put myself out there on the dating apps this past month to like date and want to like, you know, it's like I finally am over that. Like, I feel like that person's like doesn't have a hold on me anymore. It's like, okay, I needed to make space for something else to come in. You can learn one or two things from a relationship. You can either learn what you want and what you don't want. And I feel like that relationship taught me what I wanted. What I want out of a relationship today is closeness. Like, I want to feel close to you. I want to feel, you know, and granted it's hinged and like, I went into it not with the expectation of like meeting my like husband, you know, but I'm just open to the idea. And I guess, you know, it's like what they say, you got to like kiss a bunch of frogs before you find your prince. So I will tell my younger self that I'm the prize and that I don't have to move through the world with this desperation and this longing and this craving for somebody else to like give me all the things that I already possess inside and like all the things that I can give myself.
Miss Mint.
Yeah.
I I'm one of the hosts of the Emmy Award winning show We're Here. I am gonna brag about that. Emmy and
I
GLAAD
mean,
Award
you
winning
deserve
show
to.
We're Here. I have a lot of drag kids from that show, and you know it's like that to be a television drag mom.
Much
And
to my chagrin.
and several of my drag kids, one of my drag kids was from Selma, Alabama, who I still talk to this day. Her name is Akila Blue, and she's just this really amazing, like truly. I love the phrase tastemaker because she truly is a tastemaker in the Selma, Alabama area. She raised
Mhm.
several. She's a very proud out trans woman who raised several women to be women through her community outreach,
Mhm.
what she does through dancing and through choreography. And you ever seen, sometimes in black neighborhoods there'd be like the one person who teaches kids how to dance, and they have like these like street dance troops. So Akila
I
would,
was that person in my neighborhood.
and Akila was that person in Selma,
Selma.
Alabama. So it was really amazing. It was the first time I had ever seen um a black straight man openly loving a black trans woman on television. It was really remarkable. And I'm really excited to share a little bit of their story with you all today.
Hi, I am Akila Blue.
And I am Derek. I go by D.
I am the list is long, dancer, choreographer, songwriter, rapper, actress. Yeah, so basically a triple threat here. I have always wanted to entertain. It's been crazy when I first saw. I was in middle school and I went and I was being a part of a marching band and I seen the dancing girls, the majorettes. And I was already dancing anyway. But when I saw that and the level of happiness that it gave people, it just like I had to learn that craft for one. And then it just led me into like performing. Honestly, I didn't realize that until like when I would be performing, the bigger the crowd, the more it drives me to just I don't know, it's just something I think I was born with, honestly.
Every time she's performing, I'm gonna like always smile. I'm always like rejoice from it because I know where it's coming from with her. Like this is her passion. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, so it was really hard. Growing up there, you couldn't be a certain way around certain people. So it's a lot of trauma in my story. I ended up I was 17 and I had two children, and I was dealing with that on top of not being ready to be a father, at that age. And I ended up, not being able to handle a lot of things in life, that was thrown at me. And then, I didn't have my mother and my father, but my mother was there, but my father, he just wasn't completely there. And I was raised by my grandmother. So, the path I took was being out on the streets a lot, really rebellion at first because I didn't understand life. But as time went on, the drugs really showed me, I was able to overcome that habit and really like just appreciate life more because I seen so much devious things on when people was when people are desperate and they're in a different mindset, and people do whatever just to fulfill that need. So I had a chance to watch a lot of evil things and see a lot of evil activities, and I didn't allow it to change me. I've been through a lot. I have been overcoming being bullied while on drugs and still trying to, make the best out of my days. A lot of people, they feed off of your energy. I wouldn't say I was a bad person. I was always nice. I was giving. And there's certain things that you can't do when, you're in certain situations, and drugs, and when people see that you're nice giving, it will just turn to that till people want to take, and it just showed me a lot going through that. And I was able to kick the habit, because I realized that, I have children and I want them to be able to see their father. I want them to be able to, know that I'm here for them whenever they need me. I never seen the love from my father when it comes out to my children. So it's like I want to be able to express that and show that to them. And it's like the love that I have for Akila, like me and her been like this since day one. So it's like the connections always was there in the signs. I'm a firm believer in signs. And we had so many signs that was leading us to, at least be there for each other, even when we first met. I was going through things when we first met, and she was going through things. And, we talked for about a good 2 months, but at the same time, we was struggling. Like we were struggling. We was prostituting and things like that. I don't like to really speak on it, but we was doing what we had to do to survive. And I didn't have my family like that.
So for me, I was, of course, born male, but I never ever felt that. My sister, who y'all heard, she was the first one to ever know that I was like totally different. When I was born, there were boy toys, but when she was born, then here came the girl toys. So I wanted to play with the girl toys, and so she knew that, and so we would be playing, and then I used to get whoopings when they would catch me. My father would whoop me, and so it got to the point that she would lock the door. As life kept going, it was like certain things that would happen. Like I just always knew. Like the first time I seen Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody video. Like I just knew. Like I knew. Like I learned it. Every time it came on, I got up. Like I remember this. So at first it was okay, and then it became not okay. Every girl song that I liked, it wasn't okay for my father. And so it just got to a point where just like through my childhood, it just started getting beat out of me. Like at first it was no. Then as I got older, it was just beatings. Every time I would scream if I saw a bug, I'll get a whipping. When me and my brother was growing up, he'd get mad and he'd call me RuPaul. My daddy would whoop him for calling me that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then if I would be like, it's okay, I want to be RuPaul. Then I got a whooping. You know what I'm saying? So it was like just going through my childhood. That's how it was. And then I got to like to school. And like by that time my dad was like, I started giving in. I did give in. I gave in and I started acting like a boy because that's what everybody wanted me to do. And I got tired of getting whoopings and getting beat up for it. But it didn't matter because even when I did act like a boy, I still got beat up. In high school, I was always the one to get beat up. I was always called faggot. Everything is because like my face. My face has always been this. I don't have any work on my face. So it's just like always been like this. High school was so bad for me, I quit. I walked in, I fought all the way up into 11th grade. The first week of 11th grade, I walked up in there and I had my first fight and I just like, no. I am not finna keep fighting. This is crazy. Just to go to school. Like I'm not. And this was in Detroit, Michigan. I joined the gay community in Detroit at like 14, but then I was like full time at like 16 because I had quit school. And then I was like a J setter. That's how I learned how to dance. I learned how to J set buck. And then I just started going to competitions and pretty much like the gay scene just like became my life. But even still like as a butch queen, because that's what I was at the particular time, it just was not enough at all. I lived through most of my 20s like that. But it wasn't enough. I always, like every time I had a chance to like get in something that was female, I did. I will always strive to like live at home by myself so that I can have like certain lingerie pieces on that I would walk through the house with, And then after a while, I just got to a point like I just couldn't anymore. I was in a relationship and this person was in love with me. He was in love with a person that I pretended to be every single day. So, that turned out terrible. Then, like, I broke up with him. And then, like, right after that, my mama popped up with brain cancer. I just dropped everything. I started taking care of her. And as I'm taking care of her in the cancer house, I realized that I can no longer continue on in this form. I have to transition and be who I need to be because I only have one life. Because I had to stay in the cancer house with my mom because I was her caregiver. It just made me realize, like, oh, you are wasting time. What you gonna do? Because it seems like the clock is ticking, whether you know it or not. How we met was I was leaving Selma. I had transitioned. I was going back and forth to Atlanta, and then I realized that I cannot stay up under my people. I had grieved real bad about my mother's death, and it kind of like made me go down. But then after that, I just had to like get out, and so I did. And I did not. I was doing lifting stuff. I wasn't planning on prostituting, but then it was just like it got to a point to where people would meet me and just give me money in Atlanta. Like they was just giving me money. So I started that. And it was something that I didn't want to do, but at the point I had to do because I had to like build my life back up and nobody was letting me work in a working place comfortably. That don't work. So I just started prostituting and then I met him. He was doing it, which is common in Atlanta. But it was just something about the way we kept wanting to see each other.
We both had things going on. Like I wasn't looking for no relationship. She wasn't looking for no relationship. So it was like when we would speak, it was just like, hey, how you doing? And then it went from that to, hey, let's hang out a little bit. And then when we started hanging out, actually, it was like, oh,
we never spent another night away.
Yeah.
The first day we spent the night, November 6th.
It's a different vibe.
We never spent another night.
It's a different vibe.
It was just couldn't. Even like, and even at the time, we were still trying to like make our money,
right,
and shift our days to the point it was just like, okay, we got to get up. You got to go. I got to go.
And I believe in signs,
but didn't want to go. So we just slowly but surely started losing our clients day after day.
With us anymore?
Yeah, it was. It was just. It was. They could tell. It was always. You could tell. You could tell. At the time we was forced to have sex with people, so it was so enjoyable because we didn't even want to have sex with each other. We were so into like literally talking.
Just talking.
Because when you're doing that, there is no talking.
Right.
So the fact that we could actually talk.
Actually say we got to know each other first. How people want to get to know somebody before a relationship. Like I can honestly say we did that.
Yeah, 2 months strong.
And to do that without sex, not knowing, but when everything came to come, everything was just still perfect.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of pretty much went. Like everything was still perfect and like the signs was all there. It was just like
sign up
everything that she was into, I was kind of like into.
We eat I like to eat a lot of fresh vegetables, and he does too because he's from Miami, and fruit. So those things like fruit. Couldn't hit hard. And then like the fact that we believe how we believe in life and how we move in life,
right,
and how we treat people too. Like doing the prostitution, I learned from him how he treated his clients versus, you know what I'm saying? He just wasn't a mean guy no matter what. Even if they was trying to play him, he just wasn't a mean, so I seen the good in him and I could see that because I knew what I was here for, what I was doing. So it was just like to see him being so generous and gracious in these type of cringy situations. I knew that energy. I understood it. So it was like that too. And then it's just
we had a lot of
similarities in our names.
Similarities in the name thing. It was just like a lot of things we couldn't really point. We just couldn't really just point out off the top because it was so many. It was literally like one after another. Like her mom name is Rose, and like my aunt's her name is Rose. Like it was so much like it was just like different little things we started seeing within each other and within each other's family. Like things that we liked it. Like it was
his
like,
mother
wow.
reminds me of my mother. Yeah, like his mother looks like my mother. It's crazy.
Things was so like unbelievable, and it's like even when I see her mom, I was like, I swear I seen her before. It was just so much things that kind of like pointed us in the direction to like, yeah, y'all are meant to just, come together and, see where it goes type.
We know where we come from. We know, like, when we met each other, I was sleeping in a hotel, living in a hotel, and he was also living in a hotel. We were both depending on our sugar daddies and mamas to pay our bills. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we come from that to like we have had stability. We were allowed to grow. We prayed together. We struggled together. Like, everything we have done that has helped us grow has been doing it together.
Yeah, has been doing it together.
And I've never experienced that before in my life. And I've had relationships. Okay. He has too. But it's always been yes, pass, go. Something around the corner is there to save us, to help us, to push us further. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have two thriving, well, not thriving, but they're in position to be thriving, but they work, I'm a whole drag performer, and I can get booked now thanks to HBO, and that helps with us. He is able to get his line stuff in. It's slow right now, but come spring, he brings in the money from spring all the way until it's over, and so it's just, we was never in a position to own these things. We put our heads together. We worked together. We put our minds together. And everything that I came up with, everything that he came up with, we put it in a pot and made it happen together. Like, and I've never been able to do that with anyone. To all of my young trans sisters and brothers, and this like the younger me, like a girl coming up that's trying to understand herself and be herself and everything like that. Like, I just would say, please be strong and make sure that you know that to just like always know who you are, no matter what people try to deter you to say or be. Always be strong and always know yourself. And if you want a family, like, strive for it. Don't give up, because we're not.
I believe love can be so big and so small to certain people, but me, I use love in so many different ways. But when it comes out to Akila, I love her deeply, like inside and out, like everything about her.
We met when I was 21 and he had just turned 18. I had recently gotten divorced from my first husband, way back when. He was much, much older than I was, and it was a very, very not good situation. But it led me to meet my current husband, and I'm very, very grateful for it. But yeah, so we met 19 years ago. We've been together 19 years, and I met him in an ad. I don't know if people even do these things nowadays, but I met him in a newspaper ad. And then we started talking online. We talked for about 3 weeks, and he just kept asking me out and asking me out. And I saw a picture of him, and I thought he was cute, but I really wasn't interested in like dating anybody. Well, first of all, he lied to me. He told me he was older, and I'd never been with anybody that was my age or younger. He told me he was 21, and I thought that was kind of weird, but his voice sounded kind of hot and all that other stuff, so I went with it. We talked for a while. He kept asking me out like on actual dates, and I kept saying no. And one day I finally said yeah. And I let him take me out, and I meet this guy, and I look at him like in person, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a child. This is not a man. He is not 21. He is a boy. He looks like he just graduated high school. He opens up the door to this crunchy old car, and he proceeds to take me on this date. We go to this club, a bar club in a small town that we were both raised in, and he's just like ordering drinks and just throwing them back. And I'm looking at this guy like, okay. And then he tells me after about 20 minutes, he goes, well, I'm sure you've assumed or you've gathered that I'm not 21. I'm like, yeah, how are you drinking? He goes, well, I know the owner's here. And, they hook it up. So I'm a little irritated because I know he lied and whatever. But he is cute, so we, kind of just let the date continue. It was a really interesting date. I've been on quite a few at that point in my life, and I came out pretty early, not early, but early-ish, and it was a very interesting date. He kind of just spilled his whole life story in that 2 hours, everything. The deep stuff, the hard stuff, the weird stuff, the funny stuff, the sexy stuff. And I was just flabbergasted. And I was thinking to myself, oh my fucking God, this person is out of his goddamn mind. I have to know more. So I took him home, and we had probably the best sex I've ever had. And he moved in the next day. I don't know what that says about me and my mental state at the time, but oof, it was good. Yeah, so he moved in the next day, and we have not been separated. We've been together ever since. We had a crazy first 7 years of just trying to figure each other out, and I was extremely independent. And after my marriage, I just doubled down on my career and finishing college and just making sure that no one else could ever take anything away from me again. That made me extremely independent, which I'm grateful for, but it also caused a lot of issues between the two of us. We grew up in the same religion, which is extremely obscure. Not many people are in this, or not many people know about this religion. It's obscure, it's oppressive, low key, culty. So we had those kinds of foundations to kind of tether our fucked upness. I don't know what you'd say, but yeah. So that was one thing. We have the same last name, which was creepy as hell. Both of our dads are from Central America, and it's a very common last name, but you just don't expect somebody that you randomly meet on the internet to have the same last name, to be raised in the same religion. And I think the thing that kind of sealed the deal, put the nail in the coffin, is he is younger than I am, but he actually spent a lot of time with my family in our churches, and he knew my brother, my cousins, my grandparents. So when I met him and I took him home finally to meet my family, they looked at me and like, oh yeah, we know him. We know him from such and such program. So, I had no idea. He had no idea. But what it really did for me in that moment was kind of cement that he was my person. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't put real words to it. But I knew. I've always known. So yeah, we've been rocking for a very long time, and we are nothing alike. Those two things that I mentioned, us being raised in the same religion and us having the same last name, are where our similarities kind of start and stop. We are complete opposites in every sense of the word. But he is my everything. He's my rock. He is the weight to my levity. He is the light to my dark, the dark to my light. He is my balance. He's my everything. He's my best friend, my worst enemy, because he gets my fucking nerves sometimes, child. But I think that if he was not in my life, I honestly don't think I would be here. And I could say that with a lot of certainty, because I never saw my life after my husband, or during even my husband. Wasn't able to see my life past a certain age. I'm going to get emotional. So I really do credit him for saving me, for helping me know, like really, really know, that there is somebody out there to love you. And it doesn't look like how you think it's going to look. It never does. And he's everything to me. And I would be the luckiest person, the absolute luckiest person, if I get to see even 19 more days with him, let alone 19 more years. I'm so sorry, I'm crying. Hopefully someone gets to hear this and know that love is possible.
My name is Liza Dye. I am a Los Angeles-based comedian with the hopes of one day returning to my beautiful brown and black and queer Brooklyn. So I moved to New York after college and was coming out, and that was when I had my first experience with another Black woman, and it was incredible, And when I moved to Brooklyn, a lot of the other queer Black girls kind of like made fun of me, and they were like, oh, Liza only likes white girls, Liza only dates white girls. And that wasn't true. It was just that, the reality of my situation was coming from South Carolina, being a queer Black woman from South Carolina. It was just like there just weren't a ton of other queer Black women in the same spaces that I was in theaters and like concerts and these music halls and stuff, So I was really removed from my own community in a strange way. So when I got to Brooklyn, I was so enamored with just all of these beautiful Black lesbians and queer women. They were professionals, and they worked in finance and on Wall Street, and they worked at Logo Television, and I just never seen anything like it, except for on the L Word, which I watched like right around that time, like a year or two before that, when I was still in Charleston in South Carolina, and I was blown away by that. And that is what really opened my eyes to like celesbians, like just that term celesbian. And I then went on to like start a celesbian Instagram account where I just sort of like really honor and just give homage and respect to these like women that are risking their lives to be out, and these like Kristen Stewarts and Kaylani's and Janelle Monáe's, and I'm very grateful for them. But anyway, I moved to New York and became inducted into, the local Black queer lesbian scene in Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy. And I just had never seen anything like this in my entire life. I was so blown away. I just was in like a honeymoon phase there in Bed-Stuy and in that beautiful, Black queer space. And it's so underground and it's so exclusive. And the internet was really, social media kind of had just started to really take hold, Back then, Instagram was still like a photography-based app, and people were just kind of getting into their profiles and like turning their profiles into like what MySpace and like stuff used to be. And I think it was still maybe like a Vine type beat. So yeah, even social media looked so different when I was sort of coming out and experiencing that. But I was still able to like network and find other like Black lesbians and like Black queers. And I'm so grateful for the internet, like queer boomers and our Gen X's and older generations, they didn't have that. They had to be out at bars and clubs and like using Her Story personal ads and writing letters and shit, like, so I'm so grateful that technology made it like a little bit easier for us to like find each other and stuff, And so all the Black girls in Brooklyn were making fun of me because my hair was still relaxed, and they were like, all the Black girls there were natural. This is probably like 2011 or 12. And so they're like, Liza only dates white girls. And I'm like, no, that's not true. I really, I want, that experience. Obviously I want to be with somebody that looks like me. And, so we have similar shared experiences. So they're like, the joke of the friend group is like, we're going to hook Liza up with a Black girl. There's this one of my favorite Michelle Obama memes from the like Bring Our Girls Back era. Somebody like photoshopped the sign and it says like, on God, we're going to get you some dick, sis. Like that was my friend group. They were like, on God, we're going to find you a Black woman, Liza. And they did. And she was beautiful and amazing. And I never looked back. It's so, so true what they say, you guys. Once you go Black, you start doing crack. I'm just kidding. You never go back. Damn. Has anybody ever said that before? Maybe edit that out. That might not be a good look. Anyway, I moved to LA. Actually, wait, how can I skip over my insane, traumatic, near-death experience? But that's not what this is about. But I can't get into my accident without eating up all the time. Anyway, I almost died. Blah, da, 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 da. I moved to LA. And the first person that I encountered like romantically was a white girl, and she ended up being Italian, which was news to me because in my Southern Black mind, Italian is like, spicy white, like olive skin. And this girl is like natural beach blonde, lily white hair. We would call that lily white in South Carolina. And I was like, God, what is this game? They say God has a sense of humor because I was like so enamored with this girl. I'm absolutely still in love with her to this day. And she was the one that got away. But because of the culture shock that I was experiencing, coming from Brooklyn and having my first experience with another Black woman, finally, getting to gentrified ass LA, and then like the perfect white woman falls into my lap. Of course, it was like a lot for me to deal with. I'm in a new city. I'm making new friends. So needless to say, that did not work out, but I applaud myself for being upfront with her the whole time. I was very clear about all of this. I hope, if my memory serves me correct. And I did tell her, like, I am only interested in dating women of color. I only want to date a Black woman. I just had my first experience with a Black woman, and I'm not really trying to backpedal and pussy pop. You feel me? I'm not trying to backpedal and pussy pop on the ancestors out here. Like, no, God, we made progress. Yes, we can. So that is my Los Angeles dating experience as a Black lesbian, as a Black disabled lesbian. I just really, really am longing for Brooklyn and Black queer Brooklyn, and just seeing other gay Black people outside on the street corners. I kind of have to be on the east side of LA. I don't have a car, and this is kind of where all the comedy clubs that I usually do stand up at are: the Satellite, the Virgil, Hollywood Improv-ish, east side-ish, And yeah, it is just a real bummer. But glass half full, I'm a very like glass half full type bitch. And from what I hear, dating is just ass in LA in general. Maybe not even LA, maybe the entire world. So I don't want to reduce this to like, oh, I can't find anyone to date because I'm a Black lesbian and there's no other Black lesbians in LA, which is tea, because it might be true. I think it's just me and Lena Waithe. But if you are a Black lesbian in LA, and if you're single, and if you're not a Pisces, please hit me up.
Okay, so one thing that I love is the theater. And I think that so many queer people have a relationship to the theater. Theater can be a safe space for queer folks.
Yes.
Even though that's true, we don't get a chance to hear from Black artists who have a relationship to the theater as much. It's professional theater in the United States is still predominantly about white stories by white artists.
A lot of the Black stories on Broadway are written by white people. I don't think people realize this. I think people in these streets think that Dreamgirls was written by
Black folks.
By a bunch of Black folks. I think people think that Once on This Island was written by a bunch of Black folks. I don't think people realize that Tony Kushner wrote Caroline or Change. Y'all, even a lot of the Black stories are written by white people.
Which is why it's specified by Black folks. That's the rarity. And so I'm really excited to bring to our podcast, Ato, who is going to tell you all about his relationship to the theater.
Now, several times in this story, Ato will mention a guy named Jeremy. We're talking about Jeremy O. Harris, who is the amazing playwright behind Slave Play. Also, if you're a film buff, wrote Zola as well. So that's what you'll be hearing about.
I'm Ato Blankson-Wood. I am an actor and moving into the space of like directing and doing some writing as well. Yeah, but primarily I perform. It is probably the original and like deepest love of my life. It formed me in a lot of ways. As a kid, I was really shy, very introverted, and I come from a big family. I'm one of 5 kids. My grandmother also lived with us growing up. We had a cousin living with us. My parents were there. So come from a big, noisy house. And so my way to deal with that was to sort of like go in a lot of ways. But acting and theater really brought out this force that wanted to take up space. And I really felt like I had room to do that. So yeah, I love being an actor, as hard as it is. I was such a soft kid. Like I was really sensitive, and I loved, art and sort of all those things they associate with being like a soft boy. I was very much that kid. Definitely liked to sort of disappear into my imagination, because oftentimes because of that softness I was getting a lot of like in school there was a lot of bullying, and at home there was a lot of like, get in line. There was a lot of sort of messaging I was getting that my natural ways of being were like not right. There is a sensitivity that I think actors need to have, like a real sense of empathy. And what was happening in me as a kid was like a learning about how to live heart forward, and live in a way that allowed me to empathize with people's stories and with their backgrounds, where they came from. I always wanted to see the humanity in people. The first time I really like remember that I was in a performance, and like up until I was about 8 years old, it kind of felt like whenever I was performing, it was just like a game I was playing, right? And then there was like this moment when I was 8 years old. We did the school musical was Johnny Appleseed, and I was double cast as Johnny Appleseed. Second act, Johnny Appleseed. I had to split the role with my best friend. Mind you, the first act, Johnny Appleseed, was fully biracial, and like I am a dark-skinned Black person. I, as Beyonce says, Jackson 5 nostrils, all of that. I'm like, I'm giving you Mother Africa on my face. So, we were 8 years old. So like our ability to suspend disbelief was really, really, we were very good at it. It was the first time I was like on a stage and there was an audience. And I just remember afterwards sort of being like, I did something that meant something to people, and I felt so good doing it, and so I just continued to try to find ways to perform in the musicals, and I was good. So like the teachers were really like, oh, he's got it. Like they were really active about making sure I was doing shows and in the choirs and all of that. Johnny Appleseed, a name everybody knows. Travel across the land, that's how the story goes. Part of my entering into performing was when we were younger. My mom would take us to the library, and she loved Rodgers and Hammerstein, and so we'd get those classic musicals, and so it was something that we bonded over, for sure. And yeah, she made part of my little costume, my little seed satchel that Johnny gets his seeds from and plants all over the country. I have an amazing family. Like I come from an amazing tight knit family, but theater gave me theater taught me that chosen family is also necessary, regardless of the family you come from. People who have shorthand, who understand, sort of experientially your experience, that yeah, these are my people. Like I've always known that actors and theater folk and people in the entertainment industry are my people. Now you have to sift through some people and be like, you in particular are not my people, but yeah, I think on a whole, I really feel like, yeah, these are my people. They look effortlessly chic, first and foremost. They dress like they are a person who walk their own path and who don't need to conform in any way. So I imagine interesting color, interesting silhouette for sure. Nothing that feels sort of like restrictive and tight. I think they look as racially ambiguous as possible. I don't think they belong to anyone. Do you know what I mean? Um, and what makes them lovable is that they really do lead with curiosity and heart and passion, and they are unafraid to challenge. I was closeted for a good amount of my youth. But in high school, I started doing theater at a local community theater. And that's when I really got to engage with theater outside of school. Like all the shows I'd done up until that point were school related. And in high school, I went to a school. There was a consortium of schools in my county, and there were 3 schools you could choose from, and each school had sort of like a discipline that they got more funding for. And the school I chose got more funding for the arts. And so it had an amazing theater program and dance program, and the facilities were state of the art. And so once I got there, I started to meet people who did theater outside of school plays. And one of those people, Meredith Racklin, shout out Meredith, love you. She invited me to audition for this performing ensemble that she was a part of, called the Young Americans of Washington. And from there, I found my first real like community. It was like all of these people are into theater. The thing linking us is musical theater, you know? And once I was in that space, it was very easy to be out. That's where I found my first boyfriend. Being around a bunch of other queer kids was like, oh, this isn't just like some feeling that I have been trying to pray away, trying to like contend with all in my little corner. Like there are other people experiencing this too. And once I had that realization, it became more about exploration than anything else, you know. It became about like I want to kiss a boy. I want to know what that feels like. I want to cuddle a boy, maybe sleep with a boy. Like I don't like these are things that that are actually possible, you know. So yeah, I fell pretty immediately in love, because that's what you do when you're young, and you know, you finally find a way to express your fullness, you know. I feel like there's a lot of messaging out there right now around like you should have a creative outlet even if you don't do this professionally, right? Like there is what I love about it is my ability to like constantly be in touch with my creative self, to constantly be in touch with my inner child, my sense of wonder, my sense of curiosity. I'm constantly learning, you know? So yeah, I think there was a point in my life where I believed that like you do X, Y, and Z, and you arrive at a place and you're an adult and you're established and you have it all figured out. But something that I also feel like acting and theater and this community have given me are like this idea that like we'll change until the day we die. You know, we will evolve and shift and grow until we don't anymore, you know, which I love. I have been trying to work off of the bell hooks definition of love, right? In my personal relationships. But something like performing is so ephemeral and sort of like hard to touch that like I feel like I have a different definition of love for this thing, this particular thing, right? And I think for me, love as it relates to performing and this community is like immersion, like being completely lost, you know, losing any sense of tension or care. Like I need to get something done or this should happen. It's like I can just float in this because it feels so good, right? So I think as it pertains to performance, it feels like total immersion. Often what happens is a role will find me in a moment where there's something that I need to process. There's something about my personal humanity that I need to process. And this role is allowing me the opportunity to process that thing. It's interesting, right? Because like these roles don't come from the ether. Maybe they come from the ether to a writer, a writer goes through that process and sort of like puts it all down on the page. What's on the page finds its way to a theater. An artistic director makes a decision about programming it. Like all of those things have to happen in order for this role to find its way to me. So like there's also a holding up by all of these artists along the way before the role even gets to me, right? There are people who are writing a role for me to even process things too, right? So that's how that in that way I feel like the community is holding me up without me even knowing it, right? People are continuing to make exciting work and work that requires my particular skill set, which is beautiful, I think. And also in other ways, like this shit is hard. Like it really is a difficult business to be in, and the support I get from my friends who I just like can, call up at any moment and sort of be like, I had a really frustrating day, and they just understand that. So there's that too, right? I said I wanted two things out of being an actor, and that was to support myself and to have the respect of my peers, because that means a lot to me. And another way I feel really held up by this community is that people aren't shy, people are vocal about their support. People are going to celebrate you loudly. And there is something about that is so beautiful, because this business is very, very good at finding ways to tear you down, to make sure that you're not celebrating yourself. And so having those people is so, so essential. I think one of the big things that happened to help me to love myself was doing slave play. That shifted a lot for me. And that has a lot to do with Jeremy's vulnerability in writing the play, but specifically the character of Gary, and his ability to go so deep with this character really allowed it to be a mirror in some ways, and then forced me in my life to process those parts of Gary that felt like really unhealed, because when you put a role in your body, it's not, your mind doesn't know that it's play, like it's just living in your body. And so I was carrying around a lot of what this character was feeling, and this character goes on a journey of not loving themselves to really valuing themselves through that play. And I did that play over a 3-year period. So that was one thing that really taught me my value, and that I can love myself, and that love is actually not something that lives outside, like it's something I have to give to myself. I am indebted to so many people in this community who live authentically and unapologetically. It's such a vast and long list. Like I couldn't even like I don't even know where to begin, honestly. But because we are creative people, we get to live in this space of imagining, yes, stories, but imagining ourselves and how we walk through the world, reimagining ourselves constantly. We get to do that. And I have watched so many people, so many of my peers, say, yeah, I could do that job, but it's not aligned with me. It pays really well, but actually, I think what I really want is, like just those little decisions are like, what am I actually contributing to? And is it aligned with who I say I am? And that question that we're constantly having to ask as performers is it's a guiding principle for me. I think two things are present when you recognize love, and one of those things is the absence of like violence, and that doesn't mean physical violence, it means like emotional violence, mental violence, right? The absence of someone hurting you. Because listen, like conflict, yes. Challenge, yes. Hurt, that is not love to me. You know, like so that's the first thing, the absence of hurt or violence. Yeah, love to me feels like a yes with my entire body. It feels like a loss of tension, you know. That's the our bodies know so much. And I would say that the biggest sort of magnifying glass I would use, or lens I would use when trying to see if I can recognize love, is to go to my body and be like, does this body feel like it's expanding toward this thing? Or if it's contracting, that's not love. It's just, yeah, it isn't love. And I feel like once you recognize it, a way to foster it is, first of all, transparency. Like, by not being dishonest about what you're going through or how someone's behavior might affect you, by just being really transparent and brave, right? And I think bravery, like the thing I've really learned about bravery is that, like, it's not being unafraid, it's being afraid and acting regardless, right? So, like, I think love brings up a lot of fear. Um, and I think that there's a way to say, that's okay, but I'm gonna keep walking toward this. This is one of my favorite love songs. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. That was a song that played in my house a lot as a kid. And I just remember being really young and being like, I get this. And kind of feeling like I shouldn't get this or something, but like I got it at a young age. So yeah. I think love is the greatest healing force that there is. I think love is the greatest connective force there is. I think love is ultimately, and I use this word. I understand its weight, and everything that it means, but to me it means mystery. But I believe that love is God, actually, like the greatest mystery we know. That's what I think love is.
Have you ever been in love?
Next question.
Oh, and we are moving on to the next pregunta, as they say in Spanish-speaking
Have
countries.
you?
I've been in love. Probably maybe like 2 or 3 times in my life. Third time's kind of wishy-washy. But I've only been in 2 relationships, and I was in love with both of them very much. But I also have a lot of love when I go home for the holidays or to visit my family. My heart overruns with love. When I talk to you and Monet Exchange, I have so much love. When I'm in a room full of people, making them all laugh, and they're all just like, I can see people just like gasping for breath. They're laughing so hard, and people come up to me and they say, I've had a really rough week. Like, you don't know how much this laughter has meant to me. I do feel love in those moments. What do you think you feel love?
Never.
Never?
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
Come on. I love fried chicken. I love
You
ice
do.
cream.
You do. Popcorn.
I love popcorn. You're taking no popcorn from me.
Years ago, we were at Barracuda, and Pep showed up to the gig, and she just had these like trays, and we were sitting in the audience because I was and still a huge Peppermint fan. We were all waiting for Peppermint to show up, and then she walks through the door, and Pep comes in with a massive thing of fried chicken, and she passes it out to everyone in the club. Do you remember doing that?
I do. It was something that I would do frequently is I would feed the crowd and I would have fried chicken. We would have fried chicken and we'd have pizza nights sometimes. And I just wanted to like spend my little half the money I earned
Oh, honey.
to bring them some treats, because I wanted it to be like a special experience. And so yeah, I loved doing that. I love New York City nightlife. I love New York. There's so many things I have love for, and I guess love is the currency, the actual current and the currency that people speak in and deal in. We have our love language, which people specifically, sort of, we coin that phrase as something that is an intentional act of expressing love. But I do think that we're expressing love when we just live our lives and communicate and connect with other people and just, it's love, right? And so, not to be sound like a platitude, but love literally, I think, makes the world go round. All those things that you mentioned are
Love is
completely
in the
unrelated.
air.
Love is in the air. Anyway,
Well, I love you, Pep, and I'm glad that we do this podcast together.
I love you too. We're off to such a great start.
Yes. And also, I want to say something out loud. If you're listening, we would really appreciate if you can go to Apple or Spotify. We would love it if you can go to Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and leave us a review. Tell us what you enjoy, specific moments. Give us 5 stars. Tell us.
Ask us questions about what you'd like to hear on the podcast. Leave a comment about what you'd like to hear or see on the podcast so that we can look into it.
Well, much love to all of you. Mwah.
And bring me some fried chicken. Special thanks to our production team, Charlene Westbrook, Tracy Marquez, Amelia Rittaler, and Corey Nixon.
Now listen, every episode of Town Hall, a Black Queer podcast, will have contributions from our listeners and our viewers. And if you keep an eye out on me and Peppermint's social media, maybe we'll hear from you very soon.
This episode includes renditions of excerpts of Nat King Cole's 1948 song, Nature Boy, written by Eden Ahbez, as well as the traditional American folk song, Johnny Appleseed, as performed by Ato Blankson-Wood. Enjoy.